This time a week ago, I was laughing my butt off, getting ready to go pick up Abby from school as the Visco mom, so that she could laugh with us and we could just start our weekend off on a happy note. Because if you know us, we do a lot of laughing in my family. Unfortunately, Labor Day didn't end as happy. Or I guess it did, knowing the outcome I do today. But at 7 p.m. on Monday, September 2nd, I had a stroke. A mini stroke, which means my blood flow to my brain was cut off at some point. By the grace of God, it resolved itself and started flowing again. It'd be an understatement to say how scared I was, but it would also need to say how that God walked me through this experience and lined up everything perfectly so I could sit here and tell you this story today. Because if you think you're unstoppable, unbeatable, that this is stuff that happens to old people, yeah, me too. I had not one single risk factor for a stroke. I don't have high blood pressure, high cholesterol. I have no blockages whatsoever in any of my veins or arteries. My heart is functioning completely fine. All the veins in my head are completely clear. And I have absolutely no seizure activity, don't smoke, and don't drink. There's not a single risk factor. There's not a single thing wrong with me. After $2 million worth of tests and 2.5 days in the hospital, they don't know why it happened. They have absolutely no idea what caused it, how I can prevent it from happening again. But all we know is that it happened. So let me tell you how this starts. So maybe if this starts impacting somebody that you love, you can get them the help they need immediately. Because in strokes, the first hour is the golden hour. If you can get treatment within that hour, the likelihood of you losing any functionality in your life or having any sort of massive loss is very, very small. They have drugs they can give you now, and all I could think in my head was, I've got 2 kids. I already can't be 100% the mom I want to be, but I definitely can't suffer any more loss. So here's what happened. The events I'm going to tell you transpired over about 8 minutes of time. At almost exactly 7 p.m. on Monday, I put dinner in the oven. The kids and John were out at a movie, and the movie had just gotten out. I put dinner in the oven and thought I'll take this 20 minutes to go sit on my couch and play on my phone. I sat down in my chair and immediately began feeling the strangest twitch in my left abdomen. It felt like a million of those baby flutter kicks you get when you're 20 weeks pregnant. This deep, intense tickling from the inside. Then it turned to a quivering, like I tightened my shirt and looked down thinking my bowels were doing something funny to me. After about 30 seconds of that and me thinking, this is crazy, what's going on? I felt an intense shiver starting at my abdomen, shoot up through my arm and into my face. I thought, that's weird. It felt funny. I walk into the bathroom, that's about 10 steps away from where I was sitting, and I smiled in the mirror. Except I had a smile at that time. It was just slightly down. I thought, well, I'm being overly dramatic. But at that time, too, I'd also started getting some weakness in my left hand. About 30 seconds, maybe 45 seconds have elapsed at this point. I felt another intense, whoosh, warm, tingling, like total flush come over me. I walked back into the bathroom and smiled in the mirror. I no longer had any movement whatsoever on this side of my face. It was not that bad, but I mean, I still don't have my smile back. It's there, but it's not equal. So I didn't have my smile. It's been 1 minute. I picked up the phone and called my mom and said, "Mom, I think I'm having a stroke." "Well, let's talk about it." I was like, "There's nothing to talk about right now. I just wanted you to know I'm home alone. I'm calling 911. So 1 minute into this process, I called 911. It goes straight to the operator. I don't get in one of the holding patterns like you do sometimes. The operator comes on and says, "911. How can I assist you?" or whatever they say. And I said, "I think I'm having a stroke." And then I lost my speech. I must have said 100 times, 7209, trying to get my address out. She couldn't understand me. She finally got it down. I told her, within 2 minutes, I'd gone from perfectly fine to not being able to speak. I told her I was going to go sit on the porch because I was afraid that I was going to lose consciousness and the firemen wouldn't find me. Luckily, we live walking distance to the fire station, so I knew that they would be here quickly. But I just wanted to put myself in the best possible opportunity for them to find me and help me. When I sat down on the chair on my front porch, I realized I was losing strength in my abdomen, and that I noticed a tiny bit of weakness coming over my left leg. At that point, I thought I was going to die before the firefighters could get here. So I walked over to my neighbor's house, the only one that we live on a hill. How I got down my driveway, my yard, into the cul-de-sac, and over to my neighbor's house is beyond me. But they were 2 houses down, but they had a flat sidewalk. I mean, it was flat land going in there. All my other neighbors had steep rises to their front yards. I walked over there and went to ring the doorbell and couldn't even raise my arm. The 911 operator is saying, "Stay on the phone." Luckily, we still have a house phone, so it was on the house phone, but it was starting to get a bit staticky and lose connection. But I rang my neighbor's doorbell, and they initially didn't answer. And I rang it again. I knew they were home because of all the cars that were there. They didn't answer. I started walking away, and I told the 911 operator I'm going to lay down on this sidewalk right here because I couldn't stand up anymore. Luckily, about that time, my neighbor answered his door. And I know he thought I was a drunk, crazy person because I was half dressed in house clothes. Didn't have shoes on. Was covered in flour because I'd been cooking. And I couldn't speak to him. I got out the words 911 and handed him the phone because the operator said she'd talk to him. Through all of this, I was 100% calm. If you know me, I'm not a calm person in just about anything I do. But I had a peace and calm about this because, there are events in our lives that sometimes you wonder why you're going through certain struggles. And why and what and how this struggle is ever going, to be good for me. Well, for those of you who don't know, my husband had a ruptured aneurysm in 1999. And because of that ruptured aneurysm, he had a stroke. I lost my best friend to a ruptured aneurysm in 2001. These events, I didn't know John when he had his aneurysm, but I knew him 5 years afterwards and have watched him rebuild his functioning over those years. But it's also made me extremely aware of what goes on inside your head. Understanding what strokes are, the way the blood vessels work. And just in March, we had a scare with John, with his brain having some of it removed and just being in an abnormal state. They thought perhaps he was having a stroke, but he wasn't. But when that happened, and I thought my husband was having a stroke, you know how you turn to Google or you turn to any information you can find and you start reading and studying and understanding? And it really sat in with me the importance of time in these matters. If you ever hope to get any function back, capacity, or even to survive, you don't have more than an hour. So that trial I didn't understand in March was to prepare me to take care of myself on Monday night. I'm so fortunate that I knew exactly what was going on. I was able to get to my neighbor's house. The firemen were there within 5 minutes of the onset of my symptoms. That's huge. When the firemen got there, I had completely lost all left-sided functioning in my body. Leg, arm, face, my speech had gone. I was losing my ability to swallow. My tongue was tight. I was a mess. I was a calm mess. Even the neighbors told me regarding what was going on there, how remarkably calm I was. And you know what? I was calm because I knew I needed to keep my blood pressure down because I knew that that would exacerbate a stroke. They took my blood pressure when they got there. I'll tell you, I don't have high blood pressure, never have, but my blood pressure was 220 over 130. The strokes can make your blood pressure rise. That's what my blood pressure was. I heard him say that I had severe facial droop, and there was a consensus among peers that they were doing a stroke activation, which means you get the first class treatment. The ambulance arrived soon after. They did take some time to get me stabilized and in the ambulance and get the IV started before they took me to the hospital. But my symptoms started to resolve in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. We were exiting 287 at Broad when I was able to see again. I could I don't know if I'd lost my vision or if I just lost the ability to open my eyes. But the entire way from when we left my house down the highway, I couldn't see anything. And by 7:35, I had already completed 2 CT scans and an angiogram to say that I had no bleed or blockage in my head at that moment. So, this isn't something you can mess around with. You feel those twitches, you see that loss of function in your face. Just remember, your clock starts then. Don't call your mom to take you to the emergency room. I called and told her I was going. Call 911. They're going to get you to the hospital that can help you because not all hospitals can handle strokes. And they're going to start the protocol and have everybody waiting for you where you need to be. It's so important. And don't think it can't happen to you. I am a perfectly healthy without one single risk factor. So now, I haven't got all my smile back. If I try real hard, I can make it. It's just like a tired side. You know, that's minimal. They tell me that we can handle that and have a little bit of a balance issue. We can handle all that in occupational therapy and physical therapy and get that right up to where it needs to be. It's the awareness and knowledge of when to seek help, how to seek help, so that you can have a good outcome. I hope you can just learn the signs and symptoms so that maybe one day, if something like this is happening to somebody that you love, you know what to do. Because I tell you what, it happened so fast. I thought I had time, but I was incapacitated in around 2 minutes. But you know, we're not guaranteed tomorrow. We aren't. Compare and contrast last Friday to this Friday, and I can't even believe I'm sitting here saying this. Y'all have a great weekend, and wrap your arms around all those that you love.